Hey, what's up everyone? So in this video, I'll be showing you how you can create API endpoints to perform user registration and login using Node.js, Express, MongoDB, and JWT. And then in the second part of this video, I'll be showing you how you can consume the registration and the login API using React and Redux Toolkit. So if you like the content in this video, please remember to leave a thumbs up and also remember to subscribe to my channel. And let's see the demo of the application next. I'll be showing you how to add authentication to this complete shopping cart, which I had created earlier on a different series. So I already showed you how to do this. But if you're looking forward to just learn about authentication, you don't really need to actually know about how to create this shopping cart, because I'll be giving you access to the source code. But if you wish to learn how to create this amazing shopping cart where you can add an item to cart, you can decrease cart quantity, you can remove an item from cart, then I have a complete series right here on YouTube where you can check out these videos and learn or about creating a complete shopping cart using React and Redux Toolkit. Okay, already with over 18,000 views, so it's a pretty good one, and I'll leave a link at the description section below. Otherwise, in this video, we'll start by working on the backend part of the authentication of the auth system that I have implemented here using Node.js, Express, MongoDB, and also JWT. And then in the second part, we will be covering React and Redux Toolkit to consume those APIs. So let me show you around this application. That is the authentication part of it. So how it works is that you'll not be able to check out if you are not logged in. So right here where we have checkout, you'll see login to checkout, and once I click that, we are redirected to login. So we have to log in first, and once I try to log in without any details, then we get an error here: email is not allowed to be empty. If we enter an email, then .com, and if I enter a wrong password right here, you'll see invalid email or password. If I enter less characters, we get password length must be at least 6 characters long. So we have some basic validation going on here, and this is coming from the backend, and I'll show you how to set that up. Now if I enter the correct password and login, then we are redirected to the shopping cart, and now we can actually go ahead and check out. But I haven't implemented the checkout yet. So if I get over 100 likes and good viewership on this video, then I might show you how to perform the checkout. That is how to process the payment using Stripe. Okay, so please leave a like, also leave a comment. It's good for algorithm. And then now right here, when I click on logout, you'll see we are back here to log in to checkout. Now we must log in now to proceed. Okay, so this is the auth system that we are going to create in this two-part series. The first part is the backend, which is this particular video, and then the second part is the front end using React and Redux Toolkit. So as I have told you, I'll be giving you access to the source code for the shopping cart to get started with. So the source code is actually available on my website. I implemented some features right here where I'll be sharing all the source codes for my courses via my website. So right here we have complete shopping cart, and this is the source code. When you click this button, you'll actually download the source code in form of a zipped file, and that will be our starter code for this particular video. So when you click this download link right here, you'll get a zipped file like this one, and what you can do, you can just extract all. You choose the location where you want to extract it. I'll just extract to the default there, and once it extracts, it will open up, and once you click on this, you get both the front end and the back end. So I can go ahead and open this on Visual Studio Code. So right here I'll just type cmd, and this will open the terminal. I can click on code space and a period. I hit enter, and this will open up Visual Studio Code. And by the way, I'll be assuming that you have some basics working with the React and also Node.js. If you don't, I have a complete series here on YouTube, and I'll leave a link at the description section below. Okay, cool. Now we have these codes, and we need to install the dependencies. So to install the dependencies, I'll open the terminal, new terminal, and from here I can cd into front end, and then I'll say npm I, and that is npm install, and it will install all the dependencies from our package.json file. We need to do the same for the backend, so I'll come new terminal, and then I'll say cd backend, hit enter, and then npm I to install our backend dependencies. And then when we check at the backend, so in this particular video we'll be focusing on the backend, this first part, and then the second part we will be focusing on the front end. So for now I won't touch the front end. So for the backend, all we have is some images right here for the phone. Actually I don't think I'm using them, because at our list of products, which was products.js, what we made use of is a link from Crowdinary. So you can still use it, no problem. So you can just like use this one, and maybe in future I'll show you how you can actually like upload products from an admin dashboard. Yeah, just motivate me by liking this video, okay? Yeah, and then we can like create a complete e-commerce site in a step-by-step manner. So this is the list of the products which we see on the UI right here. Okay, these 3 products, these are the data, and how we are sending them to the front end is by this index.js file. It's very simple. We are importing express and cos for close origin resource sharing, because we are on different like domains, backend and front end. And then we have the import for that array of products. We initialize our app, and then for us to like send JSON data, then we have this middleware that we are setting up. We are setting up course, and then now right here we just have a basic route to test everything up. When you load the route, then you get a welcome message, and then we have now this route for sending that array to the front end. This was very basic, and then we are sending to a port. So very easy. Okay, now let me see what we have. We have this is not yet installed. So the front end completed, and you can just run npm start here to start off the front end. Then you can switch right here to go to the back end and run nodemon. Hit enter to start the back end. So you'll see that now this is starting on localhost 3000, and the back end also started. So let's see what we have. So here we are, and you can see like we have a product, because this product was already saved in local storage, but you can like create the local storage like that when you create the cart. Pretty nice. And yeah, so our app is running, and the next thing that we are going to do is to connect our backend to MongoDB. So now right here I am in MongoDB. So you can go to mongodb.com and create an account. And right here I'm at the organization name. So what I'll do, I'll just like create a new project, and I'll give it a name. I can call it e-commerce right here, because maybe in future we will just continue with the same. So I'll say e-commerce, and then I'll click next, and then for the members I'll just keep and create project. So if you want a step-by-step guide on how to set up MongoDB and so on, I'll leave a link at the description section below. I have a very awesome video for that, but for now I am assuming that you already know some stuff. So yeah, so I'll just go ahead and build a database, and it will be free here, and then create a shared cluster. So I'll go with the default right here, and I'll go ahead and create cluster. And then for security, how would you like to authenticate your connection? I'll go with username and password, and right here I can enter a username and then a password. So this is like the database user that I'm creating right here. So I'll use a very easy password. I'll create user. Right here we have where would you like to connect from. I'll say add my current IP, Actually, I should have a way of like selecting from everywhere. So I'll show you how to edit this one from the network right here, network access. So I'll go ahead and finish and close. And congratulations, go to database. So here we go. It's creating up the database. But what I can do, I can go to network access, and you will only be able to connect to your cluster from the following IP address. So sometimes the IP address changes, okay? And we can be able to edit right here and allow access from anywhere. This is good for development. Allow access from anywhere, and I'll confirm. So I'll leave that to process, and then I can go to database access. Okay, that is like the user that we created. I need to go back to, I don't know, Atlas here, and I'll wait for this to complete. The cluster is building, and it will take up to 1 to 3 minutes. So as this builds, we can go ahead and work on our code right here. So the first thing that we will need to do is to install Mongoose. Okay, so right here I'll bring this up, and okay, we already had this terminal which is running our server, and this one which is running our front end right here. So I'll just create another terminal for us to install that dependency. So I'll go ahead right here and cd into backend, and I'll say npm I, npm, that is npm I, and I'll say mongoose, and also I will install the .env package, .env. So this will help us to read environment variables from a .env file. So I'm installing two things, mongoose, this is one name, and .env. If I can bring this way, these two packages. So do the same. I'll hit enter to install them. And as those installs, I can come to the code at the very top, and what I can do, I can import mongoose right here. So I'll say const mongoose will require mongoose. Okay, and then we will configure the .env. So we can actually like import plus configure it like this. I'll say require, I invoke this and pass .env right here, and then at the end here I'll call a method called config. .config, I invoke it. Pretty awesome. So let me minimize this again and actually bring this back so that I can see the files. Okay, cool. So what have I done? I have imported mongoose and configured .env. Now with this mongoose, we can be able to connect to our MongoDB database, which we just created. I think it's still processing. I'm not sure. So it has already like created that cluster. Awesome. So now I want us to connect to that cluster and actually be able to connect to our MongoDB database. So this is how we can do it. So right here, I'll just say mongoose. It's pretty easy. And then I'll call the connect method. And then in here, we should pass a connection string as the first parameter. So let's go and find our connection string. So when you come to connect, right here, click connect, and then connect your application. You'll be able to see this connection string right here, which we are supposed to use the username and the database password right here. And then we will also give our database a name. So what I'll do, I'll copy this, and then I'll come back to the code, and at the root of the backend, so click backend, create a new file, you can say .env. And then right here we can say db_uri is equals to, I paste that string right here. And then right here, I'll enter the password which I used. And actually, I can't quite remember what I used. It was a pretty easy one, but I'm not remembering. I think it's that one though. And then now right here, we can give our database a name. Let us call it, I don't know, e-commerce. e-commerce that way. So this will be automatically be created for us. So I'll save that file, and if you come to this, I'll close this, you go to browse collections, you'll see that we don't have a database yet, but once we connect to this cluster and give it a name there, when we try to like create resources in the DB, then a database will be automatically be created for us. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. And MongoDB works with collections. It's not SQL based, it is non-SQL. So we will be working with collections and documents. So collections is acting like a table in an SQL database, and then a document is like a row. So yeah, okay, cool. So now we have this DB URL, and we need to read it from our .env file, and this is how we can do it. So right here we previously read a port from a .env file and also gave it a default port. So right here we can just say const URI will be equal to process.env, and then dot the name of whatever we gave our variable, and we gave it db underscore URI. And then now right here at our connect, we need to pass that URI, or our connection string URI, and then a comma. And we have a second option right here, and I'll pass these options, and these I'll just to avoid some duplication errors. So I'll say use a new URL, okay, URL parser. It's using some camel casing, and I'll set this one to true, and then I'll include use unified, and then topology, some tough names here, to true. I hope I have spelled them correctly, so let me confirm. Use new URL parser and use unified topology, both to be true. Awesome. Now this is the call for our this connect method. So when this is fulfilled, when this is like true, and everything is connected successfully, we can be able to tap to a .then method, and for this .then method, then we can be able to display a message to the console. So we can say console.log, and we will say MongoDB connection successful, MongoDB connection successful. So this is when everything is successful. In case of an error, we can be able to catch the error. So I can say .catch, and we invoke it, we pass an arrow function in here, and we will log an error to the console. So I'll say console.log, I'll say MongoDB connection failed, MongoDB connection failed, and I'll actually also include the error right here. So right here we can be able to have access to the error object, and I can log the error.message to the console, just like that. Pretty nice. So I'll save to auto format, and this is the code. This is the code for connecting to MongoDB. All we need is this connection URL from MongoDB, and that is available in our .env file. So once we save, let's check the terminal and see if we are getting a connection successful message. So I'll close, I won't close anything, but actually you are getting right here, MongoDB connection successful. That means that we are successfully connected to our MongoDB. And if we want to verify that, maybe we can use a wrong password right here. I'll remove the two, save, and come here and save these to restart. So it's restarting, server running on port 5000, Mongo connection failed, bad auth, authentication failed. And this is coming because of that error message that we included right here. Pretty useful to know what is the cause of the failure. And it's bad auth because we included a wrong password. So when I save that, then we will successfully connect to MongoDB. Pretty awesome. Okay, cool. Now that we are connected to our MongoDB database, what I will do, I'll go ahead and create a user model. So I'll click on backend here, create a new folder, and I'll say models. And models are just a way to like shape our MongoDB documents. So I'll say user.js, and right here we need to import mongoose. So I'll say const mongoose will be equal to require mongoose, and then we will first start by creating a schema. So I'll say const schema. So this is the shape of our user or our document. Okay, schema will be equal to new mongoose, and then this has a class called schema, and this will help us to create an object. And then in here I'll call that, and in here we will be able to enter some of the properties of our user. So first of all, we need the name, and we can enter some basic validation. The type of the name will be a string. So we use brackets when we want to enter multiple validations right here. So also we'll make it to be required, and then we will have a main length of 3 characters, and we'll also include a max length of that characters. So that is our name, a comma. The next thing that we will have is an email, and for the email type will be string. Type will be string. Actually, it's supposed to start with capital like that, and then it will be required. So right here I'll say required. Actually, it's required to be true, and also this one is required. And then this is not an array, it's an object here. So please fix this. Okay, min length will be 3 again. Max length, I'll set this one to 200 characters. And another thing that we will say is that these should be unique. So you shouldn't create a user with the same email like multiple times. Now we also need a password. So for the password, let me just duplicate this, and right here I'll just change the key to password, and I'll include a comma here. Type string, required true, min length 3, max length. So password can be quite wrong because we'll be hashing the password. I'll set it to 1024 characters. Unique, no, it should not be unique. You can create similar password for multiple accounts. Yeah, so that is the user schema. But now we haven't yet created a model which will help us to create new document. So this is just a schema. This is just like the properties that we should have for the user. And now this is how we will create a model. Right here, down here, we will say const user. So a model is usually in form of like a class, so that we can use it to create objects, and those objects are our documents. So I'll say mongoose dot, we have a method called model. Okay, sorry, model, and I invoke this. The first thing that we should pass is the name of the collection that should appear on our database. So user right here, and it should start with a capital letter. And what these will do is that it will be automatically be in plural form when we like get the database. So it will be users. The name of the collection will be users now. And then now right here we just pass the schema right here, user schema. So I'll just copy that and I'll paste it here. And then now down here we can just export this. So I'll say exports dot user to be equal to user, and we'll be able to use it in any other file, and I'll save. So far so good. And now the next thing that we will do is that we will create our first route, which is for registering the users. So we have successfully created our user model, and I want us to now create our first API route, which will be for registering the users or signing up the users. And for that, we need to install several dependencies right here. The first one will be, so make sure you are inside the backend, then run npm I, and I will install JSON web token, and then I'll click space, and I'll install bcrypt space and joy. So if I minimize this, this is what we need to install: JSON web token, bcrypt for hashing the password, joy for validating incoming data. And then this JSON web token, this is the token that will be sending to the user to tell them that you are now actually logged in. Okay, it is good for validating whether a user is logged in or not. Okay, cool. Hit enter. As this installs, you can come to backend, create a new folder called routes. Inside the routes, create a new file called register.js. And I can see our packages were installed, so I'll just minimize that. And now from here, we can start importing several stuff. The first one will be bcrypt. Let's import everything that we need. So I'll say const bcrypt will be equal to require bcrypt. Okay, and then we will have const joy will be equal to require joy. Joy in small caps. And then we will have const JWT. Actually, we won't use JWT on this file. We will use it on a different file. So let's omit that for now. But we need express, so const express will be equal to require express. And then now down here, we can create our mini app, which is our router. So I'll say const router will be equal to express, and then dot router. We invoke that. Now we can make use of this router to create our API endpoint. So right here, I'll say router dot post. So authentication is usually a post request because we need to save some data to the database, okay? And we need to receive the data also in the body of the request. So I'll invoke this, and that will be the path, and that is like just like the default path. But when we add this router to our index.js, I'll show you how we will differentiate between login and registration. Now the second parameter is usually a function, so I'll have an arrow function here, and this function have access to request and also response. Cool. Now right here, the first thing that we will do is to validate the incoming data in the body of the request. And the body of the request is what you actually send from the front end from a form. So don't worry much about that. You'll see how these will work together. So right here, I'll create a schema to validate the data that comes from the front end. So I'll say const schema is equals to, I'll make use of joy and then dot object. And this is so similar to how we were validating our user model right here. But now right here, let us just say name. We just have a slight difference because we'll now be using joy, and then dot string. So we need the name to be a string, and then we need the name to be having a minimum of 3 characters. So I'll say dot min to be 3, and then we need it to be required. So I'll say dot required. So I'll say required like that. And also you can have dot max for the max data. So I can say max dot max to be 30 characters. Okay, So as you can see, it's kind of so similar, only now that here we are using a chain of methods for Joy. And if you want to learn more about Joy, I have a very good video on the same, a detailed one, so you can check the link at the description section below. And then now right here, I'll say email Joy. This will be a string. I'll invoke that, and notice that this is in small caps, and right here dot min of 3, dot max of 200, and then dot required, and then I'll say dot email, so it will validate that this is actually an email that we are getting. And then for the password, I'll say password, and let me just copy this because it will be so similar to this one. I'll paste it here. So we'll have joy.string and then minimum character of 6 for the password, maximum of 200, actually not 200, yeah, 200. This will be in form of text. Now this is the difference between this validation here and this validation right here, because once we get data from the front end, we can actually like manipulate it in code, and before we save it to the database, we also want to do this validation. So right here, we'll be getting the password in form of text, okay, like Chaoo something, that is the password. Then once we hash it using bcrypt, that text will change, and that is why we have now this as longer than this one. So it's good to do these two validations. Okay, cool. Now right here we won't say email but just required. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save. Okay, cool. Now this schema will help us to like validate our incoming data, and our incoming data is from our request.body. okay, so that is the data that we'll be having from the user. And to validate this request.body, we can just say schema.validate. We have a validate method, and I'll invoke that. Then we can pass this request body in here. And what this will do is that it will check our request body, what we have in there, and then it will check what we have right here. If this request body matches whatever we have here, then we won't have an error. If we have an error, then if they don't match and we have an error, then we can like access that error like this. We can destructure error from schema.validate, and then now we can make use of this error to tell the user that something is wrong. Okay, so right here we can say if error exists. If error exists, then we will return immediately, so we won't proceed with processing this code. And what we will say is res.status of 400. So 400 means bad request, like the data that you used is not valid. And then we will use .send to send the message, and what we will say right here is error. So we will use an error from Joy. And again, if you want to learn more about this, I have a video on the same. So we will access the first error in error.details, and then we will say .message. So that will give us the error message. Okay, I'll save to auto format. Now that is the validation part of it. Now we need to check whether a user already exists or not before we actually create them in the database. So we will do that by using the email, and we need to bring in our user model. So this user model will allow us to interact with the database. It has methods that allows us to interact with the database: save a document, retrieve a document, find a document, and so on. Okay, so right here we will call that model, and we will say dot find one. So find one, and this will accept a filter and in form of an object, and our filter will be email. So we'll say email, and let the email be request.body.email. So this is an async action, so we'll have to await it and also make this function to be an async function. Okay, now whatever we get from this is our user document. Okay, so right here we can store that in a variable. So I'll say let user be equal to await user.find1, then we pass this email as our filter. And if we get a user, that means that we already have a user created in the database. Okay, so if we already have a user in the database, then we want to tell the user that, oops, you can't create a new account because this account already exists, okay, using that email. So you need to use a different email. So right here we can say if user already exists, then let us return immediately, like this. So I'll just copy that and we return immediately like this, so that no further processing of the code will happen. Status code is 400 because bad request email is already in use. So what message we will send is user already exists. So user with the given email already exists. So I'll just use this short form. Cool. Now, so far so good. We have checked if a user exists or not. We have validated the data. Now, the next thing that we will do is to actually create a user document using our model. So how we can create a user document is by using the new keyword and use this model as a constructor. And we should pass the details of our user right here. So the first thing that we should have is a name, which will come from request dot body and then dot name. The second thing that we will have is the email and the password. So I can just duplicate these twice, and then now right here we will have the email. This will be the email. Right here we will have the password, and this one will be the password. And whatever we get back here is an object. So I can say const user, actually not const user, because we already created this as a variable which we can like reuse. So I can say user is equals to new user, then these details. So this is now our object for the user, and this object is now actually the document. So we can simply save this document to the database like this. We can just say await. It's an async action, so we can say await user dot save, and we save that document to the database. It comes with that particular method. But now once we save this user to the database, this password will not be hashed. This will be raw text, okay, but we need to hash that password. So to hash it, we need to make use of bcrypt. And for bcrypt, first of all, we will generate what we call a salt, which is a random string, and we will say await to be equal to bcrypt, and then dot gen or generate salt, and then we invoke this, and we'll make it to have a default of 10 characters. This is await. It is an async action. Once we generate the salt, now we can hash the password like this. So we can say await again, and we will say bcrypt dot, we have a hash method, and we pass the user password right here. So now we can be able to access the password using user dot password. Okay, so we can say user dot password, and right here we will say salt like that. So we pass this salt as the second parameter. The first one is the password, the second one is the parameter, and whatever it will return is a hashed password. And now we can set user.password to be that hashed password like this. We can say that user.password be equal to await bcrypt, and then we hash the password. Okay, so far we have validated the data. We have checked if a user already exists, and then we have created a document. Before we save this document to the database, we need to hash the password. so that no one can like access your password and login. Okay, so this is pretty awesome. And then we await it and save the user. Now once we save the user, what I want us to do is to generate a JSON web token. Okay, and this is how you can generate a JSON web token. First of all, I want to do this on a different file so that we can reuse that function. So inside our backend, I'll create a new folder and I'll call it utils. Inside this folder, I'll create a new file and I'll call it gen web or auth token .js. And then from here, I will import JWT. Actually, const JWT will be equal to require JWT. And if you feel like I'm moving too fast, you can like rewatch, or I'll leave a link to a complete guide, which is a bit like beginner friendly for creating the backend. Okay, so right here I'll import JSON web token, and right here I'll create now a function which we will use to generate the JSON web token, and this function is now reusable. We can use it on a different file like the login file. So right here I'll say const gen auth token will be equal to an arrow function here which will accept our user, and from here we can be able to generate the token. So for us to generate the token, first of all we need to have a secret key, and we can create it in our .env file. So right here I can say jwt underscore secret underscore key will be equal to a random string. I'll say super secret key, and then some random numbers to make it more unique. And then this JWT secret key, we can bring it in using the process object, which is a global object, by the way. So I'll say const secret key will be equal to process .env and then .jwt underscore secret underscore key. And I hope I spelled it correctly. So to make sure it's spelled correctly, I can just like copy this one, copy that and paste it here to avoid disappointments. And I think it's actually wrong, so I'll paste that, which is correct. Cool. Now we can make use of this secret key to generate a token. So right here I can say const token will be equal to, we make use of our JWT library here, and it has a method called sign. So jwt.sign, we invoke it, and in here we'll pass an object, and for this object, this is the first parameter. We will pass whichever data that we want this secret key to hold. So we want it to hold our user ID. This will come from user dot underscore ID, and then we want it to have a name, and this will have user dot name, and then we want it to have an email, and this will be user dot email, but it won't have a password. We don't need the password. And then after this one, this is the first parameter. This object is the first parameter. The second parameter is our secret key, so I'll pass the secret key here, and this way we are getting the token. So when we call this function, we want to get this token. So how we can get that token is by saying right here return token, and then we need to export this. So I'll say module dot exports, and then this will be equal to gen auth token. Now in our register, once we save the user to the database, we can be able to generate the token. So we can say const token will be equal to gen, our function here. So when I click it, it will be auto imported, and then I invoke it and we pass the user. So that function expects us to pass the user right there. And then from the user, we will be able to get the ID, the name, and the email. And actually right here we can say let our user be equal to await user.save. And then now we pass this user right here. Once we generate this token, we send it to the front end. So I'll say res.send. We invoke this and we pass our token. Now, what will happen when you call this route is that it will perform a check of the data that is coming in, and then right here it will return a message, an error message if there is an error. And then now right here we have, it will check if a user already exists using the email. If the user does not exist, we will go ahead and create this object, and this object is our user, and we are making use of the model now. And before we save this user to the database, right here we will go ahead and generate a salt and then encrypt or hash the password. Okay, and then now after hashing the password, we save the user to the database and we generate a token for this, and now we send that token to the UI or to the client. Now from the client we will receive the token. We'll be able to decode that token and get the user ID, name, and email, and then we can like actually log in the user. Okay, now one last thing that we need to do, we need to export this router. So down here I'll say module dot exports, and we'll set this one to router. And yeah, now the next thing is that I can go to index.js and connect this file to our index.js. Okay, so from here we need to bring in that file. So I can say let const register be equal to require. Now here we will require our route folder, and then we require register, and whatever we will get is our this route. Okay, this router which we export, but we are just renaming it to register. And now we need to also include that as a middleware. Okay, so right here we can say app.use. Whenever you see app.use, know that we are making use of a middleware function. And now right here I'll include a path stroke API and then stroke register, and now comma here, and we pass our register router. And now when we access our localhost 5000 stroke API stroke register, then we will be able to hit this particular endpoint right here. Pretty cool. And I'll go ahead and save. Now we can test this with the Postman before we proceed to login. So right here I am at Postman, and we can use Postman to test our registration API endpoint. So you can just download Postman, search for download Postman, and you can download it. And then now right here I'll add a new tab, and right here you'll see that we have different HTTP methods which we can use, and I'll make use of the post request. And then now right here you can enter our URL, and we are on localhost, so I'll say HTTP and then :localhost :5000, and then stroke API stroke register. So how I know that is because that is what we included right here, stroke API stroke register. Okay, and then on our register endpoint we don't have anything, and we need to include the body of the request. We include raw data, and then right here we select JSON. The reason we are able to use JSON is because we had already I had this setup right here, app.use express.json, so we can receive JSON data. So back to our postman. Now right here I'll enter JSON data, and for the body of the request we will need to have a name, and for the name I'll just say Chaoo, and then a comma. We'll need to have an email, and for the email I'll say email full colon right here chao@gmail.com, and then we'll need to have a password, and for the password I'll just say Chaoo at. Okay, and when we send, what we should get as the response is a JSON token, because that is like the end result for this particular API. So the end result is a token. Okay, that is what we should receive. So let's see if we will get a token. I'll click send, and there we go. This is a JSON token. Pretty nice. This is already working. Now we can confirm at the database if we have added this user. So I'll go to the DB. Right now the corrections was nothing, but I can hit refresh here, and there we go. The database is now e-commerce, and then we have a collection of users and one document. So how are these created? E-commerce, this was from the string right here. This was created from the string. So this e-commerce is the name of the database. And then for the correction, that was gotten from our models. So here we included user, and this is used as the name of the correction, and now in plural form, so it will be users. And then now we have our document. So you can think of corrections as tables, and then documents as rows if you know about SQL. Now the good thing is that we are getting back a JSON web token. So if I copy this, then go to the browser, search for JWT, we can be able to decode that token. Okay, so if I open this, come here, right now we have this, and you can see at the payload we have name as John Doe, but if I replace that with our token, look, it's decoded, and we have now an ID, and this ID, you see it ends with FFFF whatever 8, and at our database that is the same ID that we have right there. So actually our token is having this data, only that it's not having the password. So name Chaoo, email chao@gmail.com. So we can be able to get the user data from this token from the front end once we decode it, just like this. Pretty nice. Okay, so the thing is, we are already registering a user and also getting logged in by generating a JSON web token. So our implementation is working. Awesome. Now let's test whether our data validation is working. Let's try to register this user again and see if it will tell us that this email is already in use. So I'll go ahead and send, and look, user already exists. If we try to make use of 2 characters at name, send, name length must be at least 3 characters long. So our checks are also working. Pretty nice. We can be able to receive these errors on the front end and show them to the user. So that is it about registration. Now let's cover login. So now for the login, I'll just add another file at our routes, and I'll say login.js. And let me just close some of these. We don't need .env, the model. Also, let me go to register, and I want to copy some of this stuff. bcrypt, joy, express, user, also all of these. Actually, I'll just copy all of these imports and I'll paste them here. Even the router here, we need it. And then now down here we can say router dot post. It's also a post request because we need to receive data through the request body. And then right here, this will be an async, and we will have access to request and response. And there is another function. Now in here, we first need to do the check for the schema. For login, we'll be receiving an email and a password, and then we will validate the request body and return an error in case of any. So I'll copy all of these again, and then I'll paste them here. But in this case, I'll just remove the name from here. Okay, and that's all for validating the data. And then after validating the data, we need to check if a user exists. So I'll go back to register. We copy this line right here where we are finding the user by email. So I'll just copy that and paste it here. And then we will perform a check right here. So again, I'll copy this line. I'll perform this kind of a check. I'll copy that line and paste it here. But in this case, we are checking whether if the user does not exist. Okay, so this time we were checking if the user exists, then we tell the client or the user who is on the site that the user already exists, else we register that user. Now in this case, we are checking if actually we are checking if the user exists, but in this case right here we will use what is it called, an exclamation mark. So if the user does not exist, then we want to tell the client that that is an invalid email or password, and they should register the user before they try to log in. So right here I'll say invalid, okay, invalid email or password. Okay, and if they actually exist, so this step will be skipped and we will go ahead and log in the user. Now before we log in the user, we need to validate the password. So right here I'll say we will make use of bcrypt. So I'll say await bcrypt, and it has a method called compare, and this method will compare the password that we are getting from request body, request.body.password, and the password that already exists in the database, so user.password. So we are already fetching the user right here using the email. So this is the password that is already hashed and it's available in the database, and this is the raw text that we are getting from the client. So bcrypt will do the hard work for us, and then what it will return is a boolean, either true or false, and we can store that boolean right here. So I can say const is varied is equals to await bcrypt.compare, then we compare these two passwords. So right here, if this is not varied, if it returns false, then we want to tell the user that there is an invalid email or password. So we'll do something like this. I'll copy that, paste it here, but now here instead of user, we will say is valid, and then we return invalid email or password again. Okay, cool. Now if all of this is valid, if email is valid, the user exists, and the password is valid, then what we will do, we will generate a token. So to generate a token, we'll just say const token will be equal to, we call our gen auth token function, and we pass in the user, and then all we will do, we will less.send the token, and then now down here we export our router. So I'll say module dot exports is equals to router, and I'll save. And this is how we do the login. The first step is to validate the data. The second one is to check if the user exists. The third one is to validate the password. The fourth one is to generate the token. Now I'll go to index.js and let's add that right here. First of all, we will import it. So I will just duplicate that, and right here I'll say routers stroke login, and I'll give this a login variable right here, and then I can be able to add it at our middlewares. I'll duplicate that. Now instead of register, I'll change that to login, and I'll save. And we can test this with Postman and try to log in a user. So I'll go to Postman. We are performing a post request at this route login. We expect only to have email and password, so I'll remove the name, and let's try and log in, and we should get back a JSON token. So I'll send, and we get a token. Awesome. And now right here, if I try to use the wrong password, I add an F, we should get invalid email or password. I'll send invalid email or password. If we enter the correct password but the wrong email, we should get email or the user does not exist, that is. So I will send. Actually, we get email or password. So you can include that message, or you can say right here that the user does not exist or something. It doesn't matter that much. So that is it. Our login is working. And now in the next video, that is part 2 of this short series. What we will cover is authentication in React and Redux Toolkit. So if you enjoyed this particular video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a thumbs up. It will really help to boost the video. And also I'll provide the source codes to this particular video at the description section below. So I'll see you on the next one.